I am Dora, 58 years old, a retired schoolteacher from a small town in Minnesota. Family traditions have always been the cornerstone of my life, especially since losing my husband. My only son, Jeffrey, 34, moved to Seattle for his tech career 3 years ago. This Christmas, I thought surprising him at his new home would bring us closer. Then came that phone call. His words still echo. "We weren't expecting you for Christmas, Mom." I never imagined how those words would change everything. Before I continue my story, where are you watching from? Hit like and subscribe to follow along as I share how one holiday rejection led to the most important decision of my life. After Robert, my husband of 30 years, died of a heart attack 8 years ago, it was just Jeffrey and me. We had always been a close-knit family. Robert worked as an engineer at the local manufacturing plant, while I taught 4th grade at Lincoln Elementary. We weren't wealthy, but we provided a comfortable life in our modest 3-bedroom home on Maple Street. Jeffrey was our only child, born when I was 24. From an early age, he showed remarkable intelligence and curiosity. While loving and generally kind, I noticed he had a particular attachment to material things. When other children were happy with simple toys, Jeffrey always wanted the latest models, the branded sneakers, the expensive electronic gadgets. Robert would often say, "The boy has champagne taste on a beer budget." We tried to teach him value and gratitude, but sometimes gave in to his wishes, wanting him to fit in with his peers. Despite our middle-class income, Robert and I sacrificed to provide Jeffrey with opportunities. We drove old cars so he could attend summer science camps. We postponed home renovations to pay for college application fees. When he was accepted to Northwestern University with a partial scholarship, we were ecstatic, but also concerned about the remaining costs. "We will figure it out," Robert had said. "Our son deserves the best education we can give him." And we did figure it out. I took on tutoring jobs after school hours. Robert worked weekends at a hardware store. We refinanced our house. All worthwhile sacrifices, we believed, for Jeffrey's future. After graduating with a computer science degree, Jeffrey took a job in Minneapolis, close enough to visit regularly, but far enough to have his independence. Those were good years. Sunday dinners every other week, holiday celebrations together. He seemed to be establishing himself well professionally, though his spending habits sometimes concerned me. He would talk about designer clothes and fancy restaurants, while also mentioning student loan payments. Everything changed when Robert died unexpectedly. The funeral brought Jeffrey home for 2 weeks. He helped me navigate the initial paperwork and arrangements, but soon needed to return to his job. "I'll call every day, Mom," he promised, and he did for about a month. Thankfully, Robert had been insured, leaving me financially stable. Our house was nearly paid off. I had my teacher's pension, and there was a reasonable life insurance payout. I wasn't wealthy, but I could maintain our home and live comfortably if careful. About a year after Robert's passing, Jeffrey called with news. He had been offered a position at a tech startup in Seattle. The salary was impressive, but the cost of living there was daunting. "It's an amazing opportunity, Mom," he explained. "But housing is so expensive there. I found a great condo, but the down payment—" I didn't hesitate. "How much do you need, honey?" That began a pattern. I helped with the down payment, co-signed the mortgage, since his credit history wasn't extensive enough, and even set up an automatic transfer to help with monthly payments. "Just until you get settled," I told him. But somehow, 2 years passed, with this arrangement continuing. After Jeffrey moved across the country, I tried to maintain our connection. Weekly phone calls, care packages with homemade cookies, and Minnesota memorabilia. I even learned to use video chat, though our conversations grew shorter and less frequent as months passed. About a year ago, Jeffrey mentioned a new girlfriend, Amanda. I met her briefly through video calls, though these interactions felt superficial. She was pretty well dressed and worked in marketing, but something about her polished smile never quite reached her eyes. Still, I was happy Jeffrey had found someone. "When will you bring Amanda to visit?" I asked multiple times. "Soon, Mom. We're just really busy right now," was always the response. I noticed other changes too. Our calls became less about his life and more about brief updates before he needed to run off to some event or dinner. When I shared news about old neighbors or my volunteer work at the library, he seemed distracted, often checking his phone during our conversations. I dismissed my concerns as empty nest feelings, telling myself this was natural as he built his new life. After all, I wanted him to be independent, but deep down, something felt different. Not just distant, but changed. Christmas had always been special in our family. Robert and I had established traditions. Jeffrey loved growing up making gingerbread houses from scratch, driving around to see neighborhood lights on Christmas Eve, opening one present before midnight mass. After Robert died, maintaining these traditions became even more important to me. They were connections to our past, to the family we had been. Since Jeffrey moved to Seattle, our Christmas arrangements followed a simple pattern. He would fly home to Minnesota, we would spend the holiday together, and I would send him back with enough leftovers to last into the new year. Last Christmas, however, had felt different. Jeffrey arrived on December 23rd instead of the 20th, as planned, citing work deadlines. He spent much of his visit on his laptop or phone and left on the morning of December 26th, a day earlier than scheduled. "Amanda's parents are having a party I should try to make," he explained while booking his early flight. This year, when November arrived without any mention of Christmas plans, I grew concerned. During our weekly call, I gently asked, "Have you booked your flight home yet?" "Actually, Mom," Jeffrey sighed, "work is insane right now. The company is launching a new product in January, and the team might need to work through the holidays." Disappointment washed over me, but I understood career demands. That's when I had my idea. If Jeffrey couldn't come to me, I would go to him. I could finally see his new home, meet Amanda properly, and bring our Christmas traditions to Seattle. I spent the next 2 weeks planning the perfect surprise. I booked a flight, arriving on December 23rd in a hotel nearby, not wanting to impose by staying with them. I shopped for thoughtful gifts, including a hand-knitted scarf for Amanda, in the colors Jeffrey mentioned she liked. I carefully packed our family ornaments, including the small handprint Jeffrey made in kindergarten. My most cherished plans involved food. I would cook our traditional Christmas dinner in Jeffrey's kitchen. Turkey, with my special cranberry stuffing, sweet potato casserole with the pecan topping Robert loved, and Jeffrey's favorite triple chocolate pie. I even called a specialty store in Seattle to pre-order hard-to-find ingredients. As the date approached, my excitement grew. I had one final call with Jeffrey, scheduled for December 18th, just to check in before my departure. "Looking forward to talking on Christmas Day," I said casually toward the end of our conversation. "Though, I'd love to see your Christmas tree when we video chat. Did you put up the ornaments I sent last year?" There was a pause. "Wait, what, you're coming here for Christmas?" My heart skipped. "Well, yes. Since you couldn't make it home, I thought I would surprise you. I've got everything planned. My flight arrives on the 23rd around noon." The silence that followed seemed to stretch forever. "Mom," Jeffrey finally said, his voice tight, We weren't expecting you for Christmas. We have other plans. Other plans, I repeated, confused. But you said you had to work. Well, yes, some work, but also other things. Amanda and I have commitments. I heard a female voice in the background, then rustling, as the phone apparently changed hands. Dora, this is Amanda. We're actually quite busy this Christmas, she said, her voice professionally polite but cool. Perhaps a visit in the spring would work better. Seattle is lovely in April. I sat stunned, clutching the phone as she handed it back to Jeffrey. Maybe you could come for Christmas Eve dinner, he offered weakly. But we have plans Christmas Day and the rest of the weekend. I found myself nodding, though no one could see me trying to process what was happening. I see, I managed to say, my voice surprisingly steady, despite the knot forming in my throat. No, I wouldn't want to intrude. Don't worry about it. We can catch up another time. Mom, I'm sorry. I just assumed. It's fine, Jeffrey. Really. I should have asked first. My mistake. I forced brightness into my voice. Well, I should go. Lots to do. Have a wonderful holiday. I ended the call before my voice could betray the hurt overwhelming me. My carefully laid plans shattered in an instant. But more painful than the canceled trip was the realization my only son hadn't wanted me there in the first place. That evening, I sat alone in my living room, surrounded by Christmas decorations I had put up with such hope. The tree lights blinked cheerfully, oblivious to my pain. I pulled out old photo albums, tracing Jeffrey's face through the years. His first Christmas, sitting in Robert's lap, fascinated by wrapping paper. His 10th Christmas, proudly displaying the bike we had scrimped and saved to afford. His last Christmas home with both of us before college, before Robert's death, before everything changed. Tears blurred the images as I flipped through memories. Between photo albums, I found folders of financial documents Robert had always kept meticulously organized. Something compelled me to open them, perhaps seeking connection to my practical-minded husband, who would know what to do in this situation. Inside, I discovered copies of checks, transfer receipts, and loan documents spanning years. With growing dismay, I began calculating just how much financial support we had provided Jeffrey. College tuition beyond his scholarship, helping with his first apartment security deposit, the down payment on his Minneapolis condo, and later his Seattle home, the ongoing mortgage assistance. Next to these folders sat my current financial records. The automatic transfer to Jeffrey's account was set for the 22nd of each month, 40% of his mortgage payment, just 2 days away. I hadn't even questioned continuing this arrangement, despite my retirement and his presumably growing tech salary. My sadness began shifting to something else. Not quite anger yet, but a simmering indignation. I reached for my phone, intending to distract myself when it rang in my hand. The screen displayed my friend Susan's name. Susan and I had taught at the same school for 20 years. After Robert died, she had been my rock, bringing casseroles, accompanying me to widow support group meetings, and insisting I join her weekly walking group. "You sound terrible," she said, after just hearing my hello. "What's wrong?" The whole story spilled out. Jeffrey's rejection, the canceled plans, the years of financial support. Susan listened, then hesitated before speaking. "Dora, there's something you should know. I didn't want to upset you before, but have you seen Jeffrey and Amanda's social media lately? I'm not on those platforms." I reminded her. "Hold on," Susan said. "I'm sending you some links by text. Check them while we're talking." Following her instructions, I opened the images on my phone while keeping Susan on speaker. There they were, Jeffrey and Amanda, living a life I barely recognized. Photos of them at exclusive restaurants. Amanda displaying an expensive designer handbag Jeffrey had given for her birthday. Weekend trips to wine country. Their new luxury car. And then I saw it. Posted just yesterday. Christmas plans finalized Aspen. With the future in-laws, first-class tickets, booked, blessed, the holiday upgrade. In the comments, Amanda had responded to a friend. So much better than our original backup plan. Almost had to do the whole small-town mom Christmas thing again. To which Jeffrey had replied, "Babe, stop." Further down the thread, someone asked about the cost of their trip. Amanda's response made my blood run cold. "Keep the bank of mom open and anything's possible." Jeffrey had liked this comment. I set the phone down, my hands shaking. "Susan," I whispered. "He told me he couldn't come home because of work, that they had other commitments when I offered to visit." "I'm so sorry, honey," Susan said. "I thought you should know." Other posts revealed more Jeffrey gifting Amanda an expensive necklace while telling me he couldn't afford a plane ticket home. Their lavish apartment renovations completed while I was still helping with mortgage payments. The work commitments appearing to be an exclusive holiday party followed by their Aspen vacation. After Susan and I finished talking, I sat motionless, watching night fall outside my window. The betrayal cut deep, but something else was emerging through my pain. A clarity I hadn't felt in years. My enabling had fostered Jeffrey's entitlement. My financial support wasn't helping him build independence, but was instead funding a lifestyle beyond what he'd earned, with someone who seemingly viewed me as nothing more than a convenient resource. For the first time since Robert died, I felt truly angry. Not just hurt, but righteously indignant. Something needed to change, and it needed to start with me. The next morning, I woke early after a restless night. Making a strong cup of coffee, I sat at my kitchen table with determination replacing yesterday's devastation. I would not remain a victim of my own making. I spent an hour reviewing all my financial documents. Robert's voice seemed to whisper in my ear. "Always understand where every dollar goes, Dora. That's how we build security." I had forgotten that wisdom blindly sending money, without questioning whether it was still needed or appropriate. My first call was to my financial advisor, Patrick, who had helped manage Robert's life insurance investment. "Dora, good to hear from you," he greeted. "Everything okay? I need some information about my current arrangements with my son," I explained. Specifically, the mortgage situation. Patrick pulled up my file. "You're co-signed on the Seattle property mortgage and currently have an automatic monthly transfer of $2,400, which covers approximately 40% of the payment." The amount sounded even more substantial, stated so clearly. "And this has been going on for how long?" "Since the purchase, about 30 months now. That's in addition to the $60,000 for the down payment." I took a deep breath. "What are my options regarding these payments?" Patrick explained that as a co-signer, I was legally responsible for the mortgage if Jeffrey defaulted, but nothing obligated me to make these regular contributions. The automatic transfer could be canceled at any time. My next call was to Jeffrey's bank, confirming what Patrick had told me. Yes, I could stop the automatic payment. No, it wouldn't affect my credit score if Jeffrey continued paying his portion. Yes, they could see that my son's income deposits had increased substantially in the past year. Sitting at my kitchen table, I made my decision. I would cancel the upcoming payment scheduled for the 22nd, just 3 days away. Not permanently, necessarily, but certainly, until Jeffrey and I had an honest conversation about our relationship, both emotional and financial. This wasn't about revenge for being excluded from Christmas. This was about recognizing unhealthy patterns and taking responsibility for my role in them. This was about respecting myself enough to establish boundaries. I called the mortgage officer back and instructed them to cancel the automatic payment. Then, I set up a separate account for my own expenses, only transferring most of my funds there. I left enough in the original account to cover my regular bills, but removed the excess that had made it so easy to send money whenever Jeffrey mentioned a need. A strange sense of satisfaction settled over me as I completed these transactions. For years after Robert's death, I had felt somewhat helpless, as though life was happening to me rather than being shaped by my choices. Now I was taking back control. I knew Jeffrey would call when the payment didn't arrive. I turned my phone to silent and placed it in a drawer. I would respond when I was ready, with clear thoughts and boundaries established. With Christmas 5 days away and no family to celebrate with, I needed an alternative plan. The local community center had posted about needing volunteers for their holiday meal program. On impulse, I called and offered my services. We're especially short-handed on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, the coordinator Marlene told me. Could you help then? Actually, I replied, that would be perfect. Later that afternoon, I met with Marlene at the community center to discuss volunteer duties. While there, I met 2 other volunteers, Pauline and Grace, both women around my age, who lived alone. When they mentioned getting coffee after our orientation, I surprised myself by accepting. First Christmas without family? Grace asked, perceptively, as we settled into a nearby cafe. Is it that obvious? I smiled weakly. Been there. Pauline nodded. My daughters spend Christmas with their father and his new wife every other year. It was devastating at first. Now it's just different. As we talked, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. The simple pleasure of making new connections. No expectations, no history, just 3 women sharing stories over coffee. By the time we parted ways, we had exchanged phone numbers and made plans to meet again. Walking to my car, I realized the knot in my chest had loosened slightly. I wasn't okay yet, but for the first time since Jeffrey's rejection, I felt like eventually I might be. Christmas Eve arrived with light snow dusting Minnesota's landscape. Instead of cooking a family meal in my kitchen, I found myself at the community center, wearing an apron and serving mashed potatoes to a line of people experiencing homelessness or isolation during the holidays. Merry Christmas, sweetheart, I said to a young mother with 2 small children. Extra gravy. Her grateful smile warmed me more than I expected. Throughout the evening, each thank you and bless you helped fill the emptiness I had dreaded. I worked alongside Pauline and Grace, plus a dozen other volunteers, finding unexpected camaraderie in our shared service. During a brief break, I checked my phone. 8 missed calls from Jeffrey, 3 from numbers I didn't recognize, but guessed might be Amanda. Numerous text messages escalating in urgency. Mom, there seems to be a problem with the mortgage payment. Mom, the bank says your transfer didn't go through. Call me ASAP. There's an issue with the house payment. Mom, this is serious. I need you to fix this immediately. Why aren't you answering? The final text, sent an hour ago. I can't believe you're doing this. Call me now. My hands trembled slightly, but I felt surprisingly steady inside. I stepped outside the noisy community center and returned my son's call. Jeffrey answered immediately. Finally, Mom, What the hell is going on? The bank says your payment didn't come through. I know, I replied, my voice calmer than I expected. I canceled it. Silence then. You, what? Why would you do that? The payment is due tomorrow. I'm aware of the due date, Jeffrey. I've been making these payments for over 2 years. Mom, this isn't funny. I'm in Aspen right now. I can't deal with this. Ah, confirmation. Aspen, I thought you had work commitments for Christmas. Another silence longer this time. That's what this is about. You're trying to ruin my Christmas because I couldn't come home. That's incredibly immature. I felt a flare of anger, but kept my voice level. This isn't about ruining anything, Jeffrey. This is about honesty and respect. You lied to me about why you couldn't visit. You rejected my offer to visit you. Then I discovered you're taking an expensive vacation while I continue supporting your mortgage. Who told you about Aspen? He demanded. Have you been spying on me? Your posts are public, Jeffrey, but that's not the point. The point is, our relationship has become unhealthy, particularly regarding finances. So you're just cutting me off after everything we've been through? His voice cracked theatrically. Dad would be so disappointed in you. That was a low blow, one that would have devastated me just days ago. Now I recognized it as manipulation. Your father taught me about financial responsibility and self-respect. I've forgotten those lessons for too long. I heard Amanda's voice in the background, then Jeffrey speaking away from the phone. She canceled the mortgage payment because I didn't invite her for Christmas. Amanda's voice grew louder as she apparently moved closer to the phone. Are you serious? Your mom is that petty. Tell her to grow up. Jeffrey, I said firmly, I'm happy to have a conversation about this when you're ready to speak respectfully and honestly. Until then, yes, I've canceled my contribution. You earn a good salary. You can cover your own mortgage. You can't do this, he shouted. You're a co-signer. Your credit will be ruined, too. Then I suggest you make the payment, I replied. I've supported you financially long after you became capable of supporting yourself. That stops now. If you do this, he threatened, don't expect to be part of my life anymore. Though his words pierced my heart, I maintained my resolve. That would be your choice, Jeffrey. I hope you don't make it, but I won't be emotionally blackmailed into continuing an unhealthy pattern. I can't believe this, he muttered, then hung up. I stood in the cold Minnesota evening, tears freezing on my cheeks, but alongside the pain was something unexpected relief. The conversation had gone badly, yes, but the truth was finally being acknowledged. When I returned inside, Grace noticed my red eyes and quietly handed me a tissue. Family stuff, I nodded. The holidays have a way of bringing everything to a head, she said. Whatever it is, you're still here, helping others. That says something good about you. We returned to serving meals. Later, I found myself sitting with an elderly man named Walter, who was eating alone. Something in his gentle demeanor reminded me of Robert. Family all gone? He asked. Not gone, I answered. Just not here. He nodded knowingly. Sometimes the family we find matters as much as the family we're born into. Took me 78 years to learn that. His words stayed with me as I drove home that night. In my driveway, I checked my phone again. A text from Amanda. Thanks for ruining our Christmas with your pettiness. Jeffrey deserves better. I deleted it without responding and went inside to make a cup of tea. The house felt different somehow. Still empty, still quiet, but no longer quite as hollow. The week between Christmas and New Year's traditionally felt like a pause, a liminal space between celebrations. This year, it became a period of active transition for me. Instead of moping around my empty house, I took deliberate steps to rebuild my life. I joined the community center's senior program, which offered everything from book clubs to gentle yoga classes. At my first watercolor class, I discovered I had absolutely no artistic talent, but laughed more than I had in months. I called several former teaching colleagues I had lost touch with, arranging lunch with two and a movie night with another. When they asked about Jeffrey, I shared abbreviated versions of the truth. We're working through some adult mother-son growing pains. Their sympathetic nods suggested I wasn't the first parent to navigate difficult transitions with adult children. 3 days after Christmas, I received an unexpected call from Michael Jeffrey's childhood best friend. They had played together from kindergarten through high school before attending different colleges. I had always had a soft spot for Michael, a thoughtful boy from a struggling single-parent household who had gone on to become a pediatrician. "Mrs. Winters, it's Michael Brennan. Hope it's okay to call." "Michael, of course. What a lovely surprise. I saw Jeffrey's posts about being in Aspen," he began awkwardly. "And, well, I know Christmas is usually your special time together. I just wanted to check that you were okay." His thoughtfulness brought fresh tears to my eyes. "That's very kind, Michael. I'm managing. I hope I'm not overstepping," he continued. "But Jeffrey and I had coffee when he visited Minneapolis last month. He's changed a lot since we were kids." "How so?" I asked, genuinely curious about an outside perspective. Michael hesitated. He was showing me pictures of his condo, his car, talking about his portfolio. When I mentioned my work at the community clinic, he seemed dismissive, like treating kids on Medicaid wasn't ambitious enough. We talked for nearly an hour. Michael shared his observations of Jeffrey's shift toward materialism and social climbing, his new circle of friends, who seemed to value status above substance. I found myself accepting hard truths I had been avoiding. My sweet boy had grown into a man whose values now diverged significantly from what Robert and I had tried to instill. This recognition was painful but necessary. I couldn't change Jeffrey, but I could adjust my own expectations and responses. I could love him without enabling behaviors that ultimately weren't serving either of us well. The following day, I met with Patrick, my financial advisor, to establish clearer financial boundaries going forward. We set up a proper estate plan with specific conditions. "You're not disinheriting him," Patrick confirmed, "just creating structure." "Exactly. I want to support Jeffrey in meaningful ways, if needed, not fund an inflated lifestyle." On New Year's Eve, a letter arrived from Jeffrey. Not an email or text, but an actual mailed letter. His handwriting on the envelope brought a pang of nostalgia. The contents were mixed. Still angry, still somewhat entitled, but with glimmers of reflection. "I still think you overreacted dramatically. The mortgage payment, being stopped without warning, caused significant issues and embarrassment. However, I recognize I wasn't fully honest about my Christmas plans, which I should have been. Amanda and I did have this trip planned for months. I didn't want to hurt your feelings, so I used work as an excuse. I've made the full mortgage payment myself this month, though it required canceling other plans. I hope you're satisfied with the results of your decision. We need to talk about permanent arrangements going forward. While I understand you're upset about Christmas, using financial leverage feels unfair, given everything you and Dad always taught me about families supporting each other." It wasn't an apology, but it was communication. I wrote back the next day, outlining my perspective clearly, but without accusation. "Thank you for your letter. I'm glad you were able to handle the mortgage payment. You're right that we need to discuss permanent arrangements as the current situation isn't working for either of us. This isn't about Christmas specifically, though that situation brought existing issues to light. This is about honesty, mutual respect, and appropriate boundaries. I've supported you financially well into your successful adult life, which has created an unhealthy dynamic. I value our relationship deeply, but it needs to be based on genuine connection, not financial dependence or obligation. I'd welcome a conversation when you're ready. I mailed it, uncertain when or if I would receive a response. In early February, my phone rang, displaying Jeffrey's number. I answered with cautious hope. "Mom." His voice sounded different, less entitled, more tentative. "Hello, Jeffrey. How are you?" "I'm managing. Things have been complicated since Christmas." He paused. "Amanda and I broke up." This surprised me, though perhaps it shouldn't have. "I'm sorry to hear that." "No, you're not," he said, but without malice. "You never liked her." "I never really knew her," I corrected gently. He sighed. "That's fair. She wasn't very interested in getting to know you either." After the mortgage situation, she started questioning my financial future. Apparently, I wasn't as established as she'd been led to believe. We talked for nearly an hour. Though still guarded, it was our most honest conversation in years. Jeffrey admitted Amanda had influenced his priorities and spending habits, but also took responsibility for his own choices. He acknowledged feeling embarrassed by his small-town background around her friends, which had contributed to his distance from me. We didn't resolve everything in that one call. Old patterns don't dissolve overnight. But a door had opened for possible reconciliation, even as I remained firm on my financial boundary. Whatever our relationship became, it would no longer be defined by my checkbook. When spring arrived in Minnesota, bringing the first crocuses through melting snow, my life had transformed in ways I never expected when Jeffrey delivered his Christmas rejection. Through twice-monthly sessions with a therapist specializing in family relationships, I was processing both grief over my changed relationship with my son and the codependency I had developed after Robert's death. "You turned Jeffrey into an emotional replacement for your husband," Dr. Marshall suggested gently in one session. "That's a burden too heavy for any child to carry, even an adult one." My social circle had expanded dramatically. The friendship with Grace and Pauline blossomed into regular outings. I joined a widows' hiking group that combined moderate exercise with understanding companionship. I returned to volunteer work at both the community center and public library, discovering that helping others consistently lifted my own spirits. Jeffrey and I maintained contact through regular phone calls. Our conversations remained somewhat careful, but increasingly authentic. Without financial entanglements clouding our interactions, we were slowly rediscovering each other as adults. In April, Jeffrey surprised me with a visit. He flew to Minnesota for a weekend, staying in my guest room that remained decorated just as it had been in his high school years. Over Saturday morning coffee at my kitchen table, he looked around thoughtfully. "It's weird," he said. "Everything here looks the same, but everything feels different." "Good different or bad different?" I asked. He considered. "Just different. More real, maybe." That weekend included difficult but necessary conversations. Jeffrey acknowledged how his materialism had affected his values and relationships. After Dad died, I thought success meant having all the things he couldn't give us. Nice house, luxury car, expensive vacations. I thought that's what would make him proud. "Your father was proud of kindness and integrity," I reminded him. The material things were never what mattered to him. "I know that now," Jeffrey said quietly. "Or, I'm remembering it, I guess." He had taken full responsibility for his mortgage and other expenses, even selling his luxury car for something more reasonable. Amanda was completely out of the picture, having moved on to someone who could maintain the lifestyle she expected. "She wasn't all bad," Jeffrey said with unexpected maturity. "We just wanted different things. I wasn't honest with myself about that for a long time. The visit wasn't perfect. Old hurts arose. Some comments still stung. But we were talking, really talking perhaps, for the first time since he was a teenager. When Thanksgiving arrived, Jeffrey suggested coming home for the holiday. I agreed with both excitement and measured expectations. This visit proved easier than the last. We established new traditions alongside cherished old ones. Jeffrey helped cook something he had never done before, laughing at his clumsy attempts to roll pie crust. "Mom," he said as we washed dishes together, "thank you for forcing me to grow up last Christmas. It wasn't fun, but I needed it." Throughout this year of change, my own healing journey progressed through distinct stages. The initial pain and grief had been overwhelming, making me question my value as a mother and person. Working through anger came next, acknowledging the legitimacy of my feelings without letting them dictate my actions. The hardest step was finding self-worth separate from motherhood. For decades, being Jeffrey's mother had defined me alongside being Robert's wife. Learning to value myself independently meant discovering new interests, establishing new connections, even beginning to date, occasionally something I never imagined doing in my 50s. Establishing healthy boundaries proved challenging, but essential. I learned to support Jeffrey emotionally without enabling financially, to listen without attempting to solve, to love without sacrificing my own needs. Forgiveness came gradually, not as a single moment, but as a slow releasing of resentment. I forgave Jeffrey for his hurtful actions. I forgave Amanda for her dismissiveness. Most importantly, I forgave myself for the enabling patterns I had created and maintained. As Christmas approached again, we decided to try once more. Jeffrey would come home for the holiday, but with different expectations. No lavish gifts, no elaborate plans, just time together. He arrived on December 23rd, helping me hang the last ornaments on the tree, including the handprint he had made in kindergarten. "I remember making this," he said, turning it in his hands. "Dad told me it would last forever if we took care of it." "Some things do," I replied, and we shared a smile of understanding. That Christmas was unlike any other we had shared. Simpler, more genuine. We attended Christmas Eve service, volunteered together at the community center on Christmas morning, and opened modest, thoughtful gifts in the afternoon. The greatest gift, however, was the hard-won wisdom I could now share with others facing similar struggles. Sometimes, the most loving thing we can do for someone is allow them to experience the consequences of their actions. Sometimes, establishing boundaries is more important than maintaining harmony. And always, family relationships require mutual respect at all stages of life. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision to change an unhealthy relationship dynamic? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Remember, it's never too late to establish healthy boundaries with the people you love. Thank you for joining me for this personal journey, and I wish you the courage to make the changes you might be postponing in your own life.